I want to start looking to buy a new house. Is there something I can do to make sure that my finances are all in order before taking this big financial step?
Oh gosh. Okay. It feels like every question is a 30-minute question.
Yeah.
Yes. If this is
There's
a yes or no
easy
question,
tax question.
yes, there absolutely is. There are things that you can do to help make sure your finances are in order. At least from a tax perspective,
Sure.
you need to be currently filed, right? Beyond that,
Because you're going to want a couple of years of your tax returns.
Yep, and
Right.
and they're going to have you sign a form 4506T that provides them the authorization to pull what are called transcripts from the IRS. A lot
Which
of
is
times,
super redundant. Why do I give you them and give you authorization to have your sign authorization be done? But
I'm going to answer that actually.
all right,
I'm actually going to
I've
answer
been
that.
frustrated for years.
So if I give them a copy of my tax return,
Yeah.
and I give them authorization to pull transcripts, what they can see is what I filed with the IRS
Correct.
and what I gave the bank, because those are not always going to be the same. For a long time, actually, it was common practice to do what's called a mortgage-only return. And so some shady tax offices would prepare a tax return
Right.
that showed you as highly profitable.
Right.
And you gave that to the bank. But high profit also means high tax. And so you gave that one to the bank, but you didn't give that one to the IRS. You gave a different one to the IRS that had more deductions. And so that is absolutely 100% why they ask for a copy of your tax return and the 4506T.
So I agree, except just after the 4506T in the first place and ignore the other one.
I know.
Now, if they're trying to see, are you a liar or not? I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
Other than that.
It could be, I'm not sure. But beyond that, there's a lot of things that you want to do to make sure that your finances are in order. But before you go paying off debt and that kind of stuff, you probably want to engage with a loan officer upfront, because you may think that zero debt is better when talking to a loan officer to try and get a mortgage. But the reality is if you pay off too much debt too quickly, then that actually can show up as a negative on your credit score, and it can show up as something that is detrimental to you getting a mortgage loan. So talk to the loan officer with all your debt first, even if you have some money banked in order to pay off that debt. Something that's really, really common is people sell a house, use the proceeds of the home to help fund the purchase of the new home.
Sure.
And so what they'll do is they'll pay off all their debt, and then now they have less money to put down on the house.
Right.
And they think it looks better to get a lower interest rate. But what ends up happening is it hurts their credit score, which hurts their interest rate.
Right.
So their interest rate is higher than they were expecting because they paid off their debt, and they have less money to put down, which means they can't buy down points and that kind of stuff to get a lower interest rate. So I mean, I can keep going. This is a complex. It actually is not that complex. It is an in-depth answer, but I hope we gave you a couple of points that are helpful.
I'll look to chime in one thing on
Yeah.
just one of your prior soapboxes is as far as getting your finances in order to buy a home. Please consider the prior soapbox of just because I can afford the monthly payment means that I can afford it. And so when looking at a home, it's really easy to look at a house. It was not too long ago that I bought my home, and looking at a home that's $120,000 and a home that's $130,000. Look at that. The base principal payment is a difference of like $70. And you're going, I could do $70 more.
Yeah.
Right? I could definitely do that. But there are other things that come into consideration. Bigger home may have higher insurance, may have more electricity, may have more property taxes,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of factors that go into that. So getting your finances in order, I think, is not just a historical getting things ready for the house. It's a looking at truly what are you diving in an all-in situation. So some of that in depth, not that that's complex, but just it's a big, important decision. Likely, for many people, the biggest purchase you'll ever, maybe repeat times in your lifetime, but a big purchase you'll make. So please put some time into it.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm really glad you brought up my own soapbox because I don't have statistics with me off the top of my head, but a large amount of people actually buy too much home.
Right.
You've heard the term house poor before.
Mm-hmm.
It's because people make a good living, but they bought a house that was bigger than they needed. They exceeded their what's the word I'm looking for? not the cost of living, right? They increased their cost of living to an
Right.
extent that was probably inappropriate, and so they're house poor, right? Because they can
Right.
just barely meet their bills, barely meet the mortgage, and have very little left over. Now they have a great house, and that's awesome. And if you want to live that way, theoretically you can. But if you can't afford $500 randomly for a car repair or something like that, especially when you own a home, right? Because owning a home comes with unexpected
Repairs.
expenses.
They happen.
Yep, absolutely. Everybody's been victim of that, right? Everybody who's ever owned a home has been victim of a, oh my goodness, I didn't expect to have this expense. And so, yeah, really great point. Thanks for adding that.